at 6 o'clock, our intercessory prayer, Bible studies at 7 o'clock, which now is our Sunday school at night, and which we call the Word on Wednesday. Come and be a part of a growing community. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Welcome to Cape Fear Valley's Making Rounds Live, broadcasting and streaming live from the WIDU Community Room.
The We Do Radio Network, WAGR in Lumberton, WYDU in Red Springs, and WEWO in Laurinburg.
Making Rounds Live on 99.7 FM, 1600 AM.
We air every second and fourth Tuesday of the month.
Making Rounds Live.
The purpose of this show is to bring you information on health and wellness.
Here's the host of Making Rounds Live, Omega Jones.
And thank you so much, Ray. Welcome to another edition of Cape Fear Valley Health's Making Rounds Live. I'm your host, Omega Jones. November is National Hospice and Palliative Care Month. And in case you haven't heard, Cape Fear Valley Health is about to open up a new hospice house here in Fayetteville. We're going to talk about that when we introduce Miss Myra Drawn. She is the hospice house patient care manager. And during the second part of the broadcast, Mr. John Bigger, Corporate Director of Psychiatric Services for Cape Fear Valley Health, he is going to be in to talk to us about the resources for survivors of suicide loss, as well as other forms of help for people with suicidal thoughts or seasonal depression. And last but not least, a gentleman that we've had a fantastic time talking to this morning, and you may have heard him just in the background, Dr. William Grayson. He is one of the medical residents at Cape Fear Valley Health, and he will be talking to us about pneumonia. But before we introduce our guest today, I do need to give you a news update that I just received about 2 minutes before the broadcast. More North Carolinians can get health care coverage through Medicaid on December 2nd and December 16th. Health will help you enroll for free. This will be from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. at Cape Fear Valley Center for Medical Education. Now, if you want to learn more about increased eligibility, what you can do is visit the website epass.nc.gov, and I'll repeat that for you, epass.nc.gov. And if you didn't get that, don't worry about it, because if you're following us on the live stream, Lindsay will make sure that she has that information for you in the comments section. So if you're listening on WIDU, just log into the Facebook page and you'll be able to get that information. Now, ladies and gentlemen, because of the information that we will be discussing today, excuse me, I do need to let you know that this broadcast is not a time for you to self-diagnose. Making Rounds Live is for informational purposes only. If you find yourself, a friend, a loved one that may be suffering from anything that we may discuss today, what I want you to do is find a healthcare professional. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to discuss something none of us really want to talk about, but it's a discussion that needs to be had. I want to introduce Ms. Myra Drawn. Like I said, she is, let me pull my old paper back. She is the patient care manager with Valley Hospice House. Ms. Myra, thank you so much for being on the broadcast today.
Thank you for having me, Omega. I appreciate it.
Now, Myra, I understand that you're new to the area. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us a little brief, can I talk today, please? Brief background on what has drawn you into the hospice field.
Yeah. So definitely, I am newer to the area. I moved from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where I work for a large healthcare system for over 20 years. I have medical experience in medical, surgical, critical care. ER, palliative. But my heart has always been in palliative in the hospice areas. What brought me here, my fiance then, when I lived in Winston, is actively serving in the military, and he received orders to move to Fort Liberty. We talked, and it was a big change for me. I enjoyed what I was doing at the time, and I told him if I could, use my nursing license and continue to serve the community, continue to serve others, and find a place that I could call home here, that I would definitely follow him. And so I followed both of my hearts, and I talked to a recruiter from Cape Fear Valley, and they were looking for someone to start a hospice home, and the rest is history. I'm here.
Awesome. And you said he's your fiance?
Husband now.
He's your husband now.
Yeah.
Well, make sure that you let him know that we all said thank you for his service.
Will
We
do.
greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, Myra, let's get an understanding of what palliative care and hospice care are. Are they the same thing? Because some folks think they are, or are they different?
Well, they can go hand in hand. When looking at palliative and hospice care, are specialist approaches to patient care, though they do serve different reasons. So palliative care is aiming to improve the quality of life for people suffering from an illness, whether they're getting curative therapy or not. It tackles pain management and all symptom management, really, emotional and psychological support, and assist patients in making care decisions. When we're looking at hospice care, on the other hand, it's a specific form of palliative care designed for individuals with a life-limiting illness, and that's the key. These are people who are no longer pursuing a cure or not pursuing that treatment, but instead, hospice the focus is on comfort, pain management, and emotional support for the patient and their family at the end of life. So, in summary, palliative care, it's like a larger strategy that can begin at any stage when you have a critical illness, whereas hospice care is like a subset of palliative care designed for patients reaching at the end of life.
Let's talk about the new hospice house Cape Fear Valley is bringing to the community. First, what is it? And second, where is it located?
Yeah, so the Valley Hospice Home is located at 2431 Legion Road here in Fayetteville. It is about 2 miles from Cape Fear Valley Medical Center. Our inpatient hospice house is dedicated to meet the needs of patients who either do not have a caregiver available in the home or who require more complex treatment than the family caregiver can manage at home. It is an 8-bed facility. We provide residential patient care around the clock. It is a warm and inviting home-like environment, and our goal is to put our patients at the center, to be there for the family members, and our mission is for the team, for all of us, is to care for our patients with the highest level of compassion.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the studio, Ms. Myra Drawn, Patient Care Manager for Valley Hospice House on Making Rounds Live. If you have any questions for Ms. Drawn, or Mrs. Drawn, excuse me, what you can do, 2 ways you can get those questions to us. First of all, you can call the studio at 910-483-6111. You can either come on the air, or you can just tell the question, and we'll get the question to our experts while we're in the studio. Or if you're following us by way of the live stream, leave the question in the comment section. Lindsay is over there working hard, and she will make sure that we get your question answered for you. Now, third, what I want you to do is make sure you share the broadcast. We're discussing a lot of valuable information today, and it's kind of hard for you to remember everything. So make sure you share the broadcast so you don't have to be the middleman. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to Ms. Myra Drawn on Making Rounds Live. Myra, what can families expect when they choose to use a hospice house?
You can expect. I will tell you that the house it's definitely for the patient, but the family is this is as important as the patient. So just know that when you come to hospice, can be a hospice at home or hospice, at Valley Hospice Home. Hospice helps families in several ways. It offers counseling, it offers bereavement, grief support, spiritual comfort. It provides companionship through hospice volunteers. It offers assistance with funeral arrangements. It provides care support, the backing of an expert team, respite care, and just less stress and better health. Our job is to educate family members about the emotional, psychosocial, and spiritual aspects of dying, and provides both immediate and ongoing grief support and counseling to surviving family members and friends.
When you find that families come to see you for these services, do you find a lot of misunderstandings, Myra?
Absolutely. When we're looking at hospice or just palliative care, really, it's very misunderstood. Unfortunately, those palliative care myths and misconceptions can prevent families and patients from accessing and receiving palliative care, and it's all their many benefits. There's a huge misconception that people cannot receive other types of treatments once you're in palliative care. Sometimes people are in chemotherapy, maybe they need surgery or are in dialysis while receiving palliative care. So thinking hospice care is simply a form of palliative care that's given near the end of life, when the patient is suspected to have 6 months or less to live. However, not all palliative care is hospice care. Palliative care can be given to patients who still have many years to live, including those who may recover from their illness. Palliative care can help people with virtually any serious condition at any stage of illnesses, including terminal cancer. So healthcare providers, by listening to concerns and educating one person at a time, we can address all of these misconceptions and misunderstandings.
Well, how would you go about addressing those misconceptions?
So the misconceptions, it comes from really not knowing what hospice or palliative is. It really is going to take educating one person at a time. But sometimes when educating, and when I'm talking educating, I'm talking healthcare providers, it takes listening and understanding where that person's coming from, seeing that person for who they are, how they feel, and we have to take it all in. And it's our part as healthcare providers to listen to understand versus listen to just give an answer, and that's how you build that trust. So trust is everything in order for people to start using palliative and hospice services.
Ms. Myra Drawn, patient care manager for Valley Hospice House on Making Rounds Live. Myra, let's talk about the focus of hospice care. Many people think that hospice care is only focused on the patient. You mentioned earlier that you take care of the family too. So what do you have for families or the family members whose patients or loved ones are in hospice care?
Yeah, as I stated, we'll be working with many agencies in the community, and we all come together. And again, we are there. We have counseling, we have bereavement care, grief support, spiritual support. You will have all the resources that you need to take care of that patient then, and then even after. We will be able to help you with funeral arrangements, and it doesn't just end there. The support for after someone passes. So it's a large group of team members that come together to support you.
If someone is interested in making Valley Hospice House part of their end-of-life planning, or if their loved one is in need of hospice care, what would they need to do?
Yeah, absolutely. All you have to do is talk to your doctor, talk to your provider. Hospital referral gets put in place. You, as the patient or a family member for that patient, you will get a list of all of the agencies in the area that have been asked to be put on that list. And even if there's an agency that's not on that list, we will connect with them and partner to take care of that patient. The agency, along with the provider, come together and start planning for the care.
Myra, on its website, the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization, they talked about courageous conversations, which is this year's theme. Now, while I was surfing the site, I saw that the organization offers resources on increasing access to hospice and palliative care services in diverse communities. So my question is, are hospice and palliative services used as much in minority communities as they are in the white community?
Wow, that's I like that question very much. It's very much it's needed to be asked because the answer is absolutely not. On the demand side, palliative care programs face a lot of cultural barriers to the acceptance of palliative care. These barriers include, the deep-seated distrust of the healthcare system amongst, particularly African Americans who have suffered generations of segregation and discrimination in healthcare. These are very valid reasons for the mistrust, including longstanding healthcare disparities and unequal access to treatment. And mistrust, let's be real. How can you, if you mistrust that will influence one's views of the healthcare options at the end of life? So leaving to believe that if you enroll in hospice and palliative care services, that it will prevent you from receiving desired care. So again, trust is everything. I will tell you that in some cultures, and I can speak firsthand as a second-generation Hispanic American woman. In the Hispanic community, you take care of grandma at home. There's a lot of cultural pressure. If you really love this person, you keep them at home. Mm-hmm. We need to acknowledge that there are people whose needs are so great that families cannot manage this at home. Hospice is a philosophy of care, one that reduces the burden of medical care so patients and their families can focus on what truly matters, and that is spending time together. It truly is the responsibility of palliative clinicians who are at the forefront caring for these vulnerable patients to understand this mistrust, where it comes from. We have to be an advocate for the patients. We have to see them. We have to hear them. We have to listen to understand and try to explain the benefits. But we have to also remember that trust begins when our words match our actions. As the healthcare field works towards bringing palliative care everywhere and reducing these disparities in access and care for people living with serious illnesses in minority communities, this is going to be one of our most important challenges. It's there. We have to continue to talk about it, and we have to be able to understand people.
How do you recommend people in the African American communities to have these courageous conversations with their loved ones?
Yeah, again, if it starts by we need everyone in the community. I welcome you. For example, the hospice home on Legion Road. I welcome you to visit, to ask questions, and for people to understand that patients can receive palliative care at any stage of serious illness. Just because you choose palliative care, it doesn't mean that it's the end for you. It doesn't mean that your doctor, your provider is going to stop caring for you, is going to stop all your medicines. It is none of that. It is, palliative means it's an extra layer of support, and increases patients' comfort by addressing their physical, social, emotional, and spiritual needs. Palliative is very valuable. There's nothing to be scared of. Again, I've heard the misconception many, many times. If I choose palliative, or if I put my mom in a hospice home, that means that they're gonna go in there and just die, and that is not true. I will tell you that our goal for anyone in our care is to just be in the moment. Comfort is everything, and just be able to put that patient in the center, and to be able to just rest in peace. And I would tell you another thing that's very important, it's the end-of-life planning. I mean, that is everything. When caregivers, family members, and loved ones are clear about their patient's preferences for treatment in the final stages of life, you're all free to devote your energy and care and compassion to ensure that everyone in your family understands your loved one's wishes is important, because at the end, you don't want to spend all the time arguing with family members about, I want to do this for mom, or, we should do this. If you already know what your loved one needs or wishes are, you get to actually spend time with your loved one and be there for them. And I'll leave it at one last thing, just to remember for everyone that I know it's very enjoyable to celebrate birth, but it is just as important to comfort in death. The end of life deserves as much beauty, care, and respect as the beginning.
I love how you said that. That was awesome. Myra, we understand that we're having a very difficult conversation this morning, very difficult subjects. Many people are probably saying that I would rather put this off, or I don't want to put that out there in the atmosphere, or they may avoid it altogether. What would you say to our audience and urge them to consider discussing their end-of-life journey now?
If you plan for it now, it's just going to be smoother at the end. You're doing, and I'm talking about, for yourself, you are taking that burden away from your family members, your loved ones, if you have that planning ahead. If you are, you don't need to wait until, a crisis strike, and now you're not able to make those decisions. So it is important that you take control now, and you plan for your wishes now, and therefore everything will be just right.
All right. And lastly, is there anything that you want to stress to our listeners and viewers, or is there anything that we may have skipped over that you want to discuss?
I will say that I encourage you to look and ask your providers, talk to your doctors, and say, hey, can you give me more information about palliative care? It's a simple referral. Someone will reach out to you. And again, you have the choice. We work with so many agencies in the area. We give you a list, and you pick who is good for you and your family.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, from Valley Hospice House, Patient Care Manager, Ms. Myra Drawn. Myra, thank you so much for joining us today. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, up next, we're discussing when a person ends their life too soon and the resources that are available for family members left behind. Hard topics, but we have to discuss them. Cape Fear Valley Health, Making Rounds Live. Make sure you stay close.
We'll be right back with more of Making Rounds Live.
Cape Fear Valley's Making Rounds Live.
Broadcasting and streaming live from the WIDU Community Room on 99.7 FM, 1600 AM.
The We Do Radio Network.
Evangelist Tammy Fuller and Bishop Michael Fuller from Word of Life Tabernacle, 5628 Nix Road. You're listening to Wake Up.
Hunter Biden is offering to testify publicly before Congress in response to a subpoena from Republicans investigating every aspect of his business dealings as they pursue an impeachment inquiry into his father. A compensation plan was presented to nutrition workers in Guilford County schools following a walkout on Monday in regard to their salaries. After reviewing the compensation plan, demonstration leaders argued not much is different from the original compensation plan. Ardent Health, which operates 30 hospitals nationwide, says a cyber attack has shut down emergency rooms in at least 6 states. Ardent is having to divert patients to other facilities. There are only a few days left until December, which means it's time to start searching for the perfect Christmas tree. Whether you're looking to buy an artificial tree or a real one, many tree lots and stores in the state have you covered. Mike Trayley, NCN News.
WIDU News. I'm Julio Flores. Cumberland County Schools and the Fayetteville Police Department are hosting a series of community events dedicated to raising awareness about gun violence prevention. These events will be showcasing The Crux, Educating Kids About Gun Violence 2, a thought-provoking film by the Fayetteville Police Department that addresses criminal issues, including sexting, gun violence, peer pressure, and the lasting impact of personal choices. Some of the event dates are at the Grays Creek High. That'll be happening today. 71st High happening on Thursday. Pine Forest High on Thursday, February 8th. Thursday, February 22nd. The main presentation will begin at 6 p.m. on those dates. We do local news every weekday morning on WIDU.
A fire danger threat is in place due to dry air around and gusty winds moving in today. We'll see them gust around 30 miles per hour at times. Burning is discouraged. We will see highs in the lower 40s and lower 50s today, but with the winds around, it will feel more like the 30s throughout most of the day. And then tonight, we're down into the upper teens and lower 20s. Highs will top of the mid to upper 40s as we head into tomorrow. I'm meteorologist Peter Sherwood in the Weather Center.
This is Bishop Michael Fuller from Word of Life Tabernacle. Catch the vision and join the team.
Hello, this is Reverend Dr. Patania L. Island, pastor of Hood Memorial AME Zion Church, and I am inviting you to come out and join us every Sunday morning at 9:30 for our Sunday school, and at 11 o'clock our morning worship service. We have midweek service on Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock p.m., and every first Friday night is our Shabbat praise night at 7 o'clock p.m. Hood is on fire for the Lord. Don't you want to join us? Where no one in the kingdom got swagger like us.
Hi, this is T.W. Campbell.
And I'm Patricia Campbell.
Of the Refuge Community Church, located at 2314 L.A. Dunham Road here in the God Bless city of Fayetteville, North Carolina. You can reach us at area code 910-483-6477. We're here to invite you to our early morning service each Sunday morning beginning at 8:30 in the morning. Our prayer is at 6 o'clock, our intercessory prayer. Bible studies at 7 o'clock, which now is our Sunday school at night, and which we call the Word on Wednesday. Come and be a part of a growing community. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
God bless you. I'm Pastor Al McAllister, the pastor of Rafa Ministries Family Centers Incorporated, and we're asking you to join us for our worship services every Sunday morning at 8:45 to 10:15 a.m. And our Bible studies is every Wednesday at 7 p.m. to 8:30. Join us. We are located at 2520 Murchison Road, WIDU radio station. If you really want to come for a Power Pipe worship service and Bible study to learn what the Bible say about your everyday life, please join us. Al McAllister, pastor of Rafa Ministries Family Center, 2520 Murchison Road. Join us. God bless you.
Evangelist Tammy Fuller and Bishop Michael Fuller from Word of Life Tabernacle, 5628 Nix Road. You're listening to Wake Up.
We now return to Making Rounds Live.
Cape Fear Valley's Making Rounds Live.
Broadcasting and streaming live on the WIDU network, 99.7 FM, 1600 AM. Here's Omega Jones.
Thank you so much, Ray. Welcome back to the second segment of Cape Fear Valley Health's Making Rounds Live. November 18th, it was International Survivors Suicide Loss Day. And in the studio with us right now to discuss suicide, to discuss the resources available, to discuss seasonal depression, is a man that you already know. He's been in the studio plenty of times before, Mr. John Bigger, Corporate Director of Psychiatric Services for Cape Fear Valley Health. How you doing, John? Thank you so much for joining us again.
Good to see you as always.
All right, John, I already know you're a busy man and we've only got you for a few minutes. So let me start with, as I mentioned, November 18th, that was International Survivors Suicide Loss Day, which falls right into the beginning of the holiday season. Was that a coincidence?
I don't think so. I think there's a correlation of the fact that if you look at the terminology they're using, it's International Survivors of Suicide Loss. When it's not focused on the people that committed suicide, it's focused on the survivors from that. And during the holiday season, we have family gatherings. We have a lot of people getting together that don't normally get together throughout the year as much as they do during the holidays. And all of a sudden, that person's not there. And so the survivors of the suicide really struggle with that sense of isolation or that sense of loss that person, they're not here for the big turkey dinner. They're not here for the opening of the presents. And it just becomes a struggle for them. So go ahead.
Someone listening or watching and they're dealing with the loss of someone of suicide. They know they need to do something, John, but they don't know what they need to do. Where do they start?
First, just reach out to anybody. It sounds strange, but just to reach out and try not to isolate as much. Calling 988, which a lot of people know is the suicide hotline, but that 988 number also provides guidance for people that are struggling with coping with suicide or the loss of a loved one. Your clergy, your church, your support system, reach out to those folks. Your loved ones that are, still here. You want to have the ability for them to reach out to. The sad part about suicide is the stigma. We always talk about stigma in mental health, but there's also, we had our hospice lady here, Myra, a few minutes ago, and we talk about how talking through death is a healing thing. But then when it comes to talking about suicide, people kind of hush that. And it's like, oh, well, so-and-so died of lung cancer or so-and-so died of pneumonia or whatever. But then when it comes to suicide, they start whispering. And so having people being able to reach out and to not isolate so much is real helpful.
John, I understand that Cape Fear Valley Health has support to help grieving families in this situation. What are some of the resources that are available?
The most important thing is if it's somebody that's imminently suicidal, call 911 and or get them to the emergency department. We have psychiatrists that are pretty much on duty the entire time in the emergency department, and they can assess if it's serious enough of a problem for that person to keep them overnight, keep them for a few days, and help them get stabilized. If it's more coping with the loss of a loved one or just dealing with depression or suicidal thoughts with no intent or plan to act out on them, then they can call the Community Mental Health Center, and we can get them hooked up with a bereavement or a grief counselor that can help them deal with some of those problems.
John Bigger with us this morning on Making Rounds Live. John, do people need insurance to take advantage of all of these resources?
No. We're here to help people.
All right. Let's talk about someone who may be thinking about suicide. You've already mentioned calling 988. You've already mentioned that. What help is available for them?
One of the things that I try to do when anybody talks about being suicidal is I try to remind them that suicide is an option. When, unfortunately, it's if you act out on suicide, that becomes a permanent option. You can't change your mind. And so I try to make them aware that there's other options that they can explore through either counseling, through medication management with a psychiatrist, through, again, reaching out to your church and loved ones, but getting rid of that terminal permanent option is the most important thing. And then if somebody is a loved one and you're real concerned about them, sit with them, stay with them, make sure that there's not access to lethal means in their home. And by that I mean firearms. And a lot of people immediately think firearms and stuff like that, but it can be pills, it can be rope, it can be a lot of different things that you don't consider that are deadly tools that you can use to commit suicide with. But just kind of do a scan of the environment as you sit with them and try to get some of those things out of the house. But then again, just sit with the person and listen and be able to help them and have them feel supported by you.
All right, John, I understand that you have to get out of here. So any last minute thoughts before we let you go to your next meeting?
Well, I apologize for having to leave early.
No, that is no problem.
I would just say, as the holidays come close and you know somebody who is a survivor or of a loss of a loved one, embrace that person. Let them know you're there for them. Encourage them to talk about it. Encourage them to do what they want to do with it. If they don't want to talk about it, that's okay. But just kind of, as I said earlier, be present with them and let them know that you're there to support them and that you care about them and that you just want to help them get through this particular season. And then lastly, try to work with them in terms of the self-doubt and guilt that they might have. A lot of, especially when it comes to a parent of somebody that has committed suicide, is what did I do wrong as a parent? What are some self-doubts and guilt that I might have as the surviving family member, and how hard that can be on somebody. And that's not just family members. That can be friends that didn't see the signs coming or felt like they didn't listen enough and stuff like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Bigger, Corporate Director of Psychiatric Services at Cape Fear Valley Health. Wish we could have him here longer, but he's a very busy man. John, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to be with us today. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right. And now remember, if you're struggling, it's okay to share your feelings. Now, if you don't know how to start, just copy one of the pre-written messages Lindsay will put in the Facebook comment section of today's broadcast. You can send that to a trusted contact, or you can text it to 988. So make sure you go back, make sure you check the live feed from today and get that information if you need it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to introduce our last guest, Dr. William Grayson. Dr. Grayson is a first-year resident in the internal medicine program, and in recognition of World Pneumonia Day, which was November 12th, he's here to discuss pneumonia. So, Dr. Grayson, welcome to Making Rounds Live. We greatly appreciate you being here this morning.
Thank you. I'm glad to be able to be here. So I appreciate your invitation.
Now, Dr. Grayson, this is your first time. I understand you're new to the area, so we've got to go ahead and break in the ice. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I grew up in San Antonio, Texas. I actually spent several years here in Fort Bragg when it was still Fort Bragg, and then went to medical school back in San Antonio, decided to come back to Fayetteville to continue serving the community here as a physician. So.
All right. Dr. Grayson, it's cold and flu season.
It is.
Who is most at risk for pneumonia? Because that's what we're talking about with you right now.
Sure. So the most at-risk people for pneumonia are going to be kind of the two ends of the spectrum, the very young children. Usually we think less than 5 years old. And then also the people older than 65 tend to have a higher risk for pneumonia. Some of the other risk factors that can increase it are things like heart disease or lung disease, or other chronic issues like diabetes, and always smokers.
You said always smokers. Dr. Grayson, Usually when you hear, now you said on both ends of the spectrum, the young and the elderly. Most of the time when you hear pneumonia, you see elderly people. Why is that? Why is it that elderly people get pneumonia so often?
I think it's a combination of factors. One of them is physical activity. As we get up and we get active, our lungs naturally expand and open up and let air in and out a little bit better. As we age, we tend to do that less. On top of that, we have more likelihood of having chronic illnesses like heart disease, lung disease, diabetes, and things like that. All of those increase the risk of getting pneumonia, so it's kind of a multi-pronged issue.
What about the population who are very limited in their mobility? What is their risk of developing pneumonia?
Yeah, so similar to what we were just saying, physical activity is one of the big things that can help reduce your risk of pneumonia. Physical activity helps you expand your lungs, but it also helps improve your immune system, your cardiovascular health, and all of those things, as they decline, your increased risk for illnesses in general gets worse, and then you also have an increased risk of pneumonia.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. William Grayson, a resident in the internal medicine program at Cape Fear Valley Health, on Making Rounds Live this morning. Dr. Grayson, can you catch pneumonia from other people?
You can, unfortunately.
You can?
You can, unfortunately. So there are several types of pneumonias. When we think about pneumonias, we think bacterial, we think viral, which are the two most common. You can also have fungal pneumonias, but those are very rare. Bacterial pneumonias and viral pneumonias tend to come. Viral pneumonias, we think of stuff like COVID. You can have other viruses that can cause you to have a pneumonia. Bacterial pneumonias, if you get them, tend to follow other viral illnesses. So when we say you can pass on pneumonia, it's contagious, we think of things like bacteria being passed on in the droplets when we cough, saliva, things like that.
All right. You mentioned earlier that limited movement is a primary reason for pneumonia. Are there any other ways a person can develop it?
So when we think about pneumonia, as far as being contagious, you can get it from somebody else who does have a pneumonia if they're, passing around the bacteria that they have. Typically, you won't catch it. It's not very commonly passed on, but it can be. Not having good lung volume expansion, so laying down a lot, sitting in chairs a lot, and not getting up and having that activity reduces the airflow through the lungs. So you tend to have dead spaces in the lungs that can build up bacteria, and when it builds up bacteria, it makes a new little home for itself there in the lungs, and that's how we get pneumonia.
During the health festival, or during the health clinic during the Umoja Festival, they had a lung function test. I think it's what it was called. Is that something that a person may need to do to see if they are a possible candidate? I know that's not the right term, but is that something that they need to do as far as...
Yeah, I think if it's recommended by their doctor, then I think it's a good idea to do. People who have things like COPD, emphysema, other lung diseases, they typically see a doctor called a pulmonologist who will monitor their lung function. The type of screening that you're talking about at the fair is it's just that. It's a screening to see if we need to look into a patient a little bit more if they're at risk. It's not an end-all, be-all test.
Okay. All right. Vaccines. Are there any vaccines for pneumonia?
There are, and I encourage everybody who is in those risk factors groups to get them. So we vaccinate children from several bacteria that can cause pneumonia. Anybody under the age of 5 should get a pneumonia vaccine, as well as anybody over the age of 65 should get pneumonia vaccines. And if you have one of those other risk factors, such as heart disease or diabetes, or you're a long-term smoker, then we encourage you to get the pneumonia vaccine as well, in addition to influenza and COVID, which are large culprits of pneumonia.
What about the other respiratory vaccines? I guess like the flu shot, maybe the COVID vaccine. Can they lower a person's risk of getting pneumonia?
Absolutely, yes. So over the last few years, we've seen a ton of COVID pneumonias. Influenza is always a large risk factor for pneumonia. On top of that, kind of as I mentioned at the very beginning of this, one of the largest risk factors for a bacterial pneumonia is a recent viral illness, and specifically recent viral respiratory infection. So getting those vaccines to help reduce your risk for the COVID and the influenza, also it reduces your risk of getting those pneumonias afterwards.
Dr. Grayson, how would you know if you're getting pneumonia or if you're just getting a bad cold or borderline bronchitis?
Sure. So that's always a good question, and there's no definite line answer. What I would say is typically with pneumonia, we see higher fevers, typically above 101 degrees. If you have shortness of breath, especially when you're doing very little activity, that's always a big red flag to me for, should I look a little bit harder at this person to see, do they have pneumonia versus a cold? If you're having a lot of confusion or just not feeling yourself, it could be pneumonia. It could also just be kind of like you said, a very bad cold or a very, bronchitis. But I think if you're having those high fevers and the difficulty catching your breath, if you're just sitting at rest or even just getting up and walking, then you should definitely see your provider and get checked out a little bit better.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the middle of an interesting conversation with Dr. William Grayson. He is a resident in the internal medicine program at Cape Fear Valley Health, and he's our guest right now on Making Rounds Live. Dr. Grayson, when does pneumonia become serious enough to require hospitalization?
Sure. So pneumonia, when we get to that point where we're having a lot of shortness of breath, confusion, not able to catch our breath, or if we have to do, IV antibiotics or something like that, are all reasons that we would hospitalize for somebody for pneumonia. A lot of times, especially in that kind of between 5 and 50 and 65 range, we can treat pneumonia outpatient. But as you get older, you get, more likelihood of being hospitalized with pneumonia.
Is there anything that people can do to prevent pneumonia from sending them to the hospital?
So getting evaluated early, if you're starting to have those symptoms of a high fever, chills, nausea, that kind of stuff, going to the ER, the urgent care, or what I prefer would be your primary physician to get examined early. If you can start the antibiotics early, you can tend to knock it out a little bit easier, as opposed to if you're delaying and coming when the problem's already 100% a problem.
And Dr. Grayson, what do you want people, before we close out today's show, what do you want people to understand about pneumonia and how it can be prevented?
So the number one and number two things I like to tell people for preventing pneumonia: number one, stop smoking. If you can at all, stop smoking, that's going to reduce your risk for not only pneumonia but 100 other different illnesses. The other one is to make sure you stay up on your seasonal vaccinations. Influenza vaccine and now COVID vaccine are very big for preventing pneumonia. So if you get those vaccinations and you're able to stop smoking, you reduce your risk dramatically for a severe pneumonia.
Is it too late to get those vaccines? We're already heading into Wilmington.
It is
We're
not.
already heading into winter.
So I would say that it's not too late to get them. I would encourage everybody to get them as soon as they can. Typically, we start looking at doing them between August and September, but all the way through the beginning of the New Year's, it's not too late to get them.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Dr. William Grayson for joining us today, one of Cape Fear Valley Health's resident physicians, and he is in the internal medicine program. Dr. Grayson, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Well, family, it is a wrap. Oh, I do need to let you know one more again that North Carolina North Carolinians can get health coverage through Medicaid. On December 2nd and December 16th, Cape Fear Valley Health will help you enroll for free. Love that word. And it is from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. at Cape Fear Valley Center for Medical Education. If you want to learn more about eligibility, what you can do is visit the website epass.nc.gov. Well, family, like I said, it's a wrap. Our next broadcast is Tuesday, December 12th, when we'll discuss the Cumberland County Medication Access Program and how it can help people get their medication at little or no charge for people without insurance. Make sure you join us. For our producers, Shaka Jordan and Ray Thomas, our social media coordinator, Miss Lindsay Graham, and the hardworking people behind the scenes, I'm Omega Jones. Thank you so much for listening and joining Cape Fear Valley Health's Making Rounds Live.
Your station for inspiration and information. 1600 AM, 99.7 FM, WIDU1600.com. We are WIDU Fayetteville. We do radio. Follow us on Facebook at WIDU 1600 AM.
MCN News, I'm Mike Rayleigh. Below normal temperatures are taking over in North Carolina for the next couple of days. WBTV meteorologist Eric Garlick says it'll be windy in some areas, too.
We are tracking some strong winds, as winds gusting up near 40 to 50 miles an hour in the higher elevations.